In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data. So we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone overlooking High Falls in downtown Rochester, New York, this is a very special edition of the Computer Exorcist Podcast. So I am off-site today in the office of Pastor Domenic Denesi. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mark. It's great to be with you today.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. We've been friends for like 6-7 years now.
Over 7 years, yeah.
Yeah, and it's been on my list. I got to get you on the show. I got to get you on the show.
Yep.
So here you are. Years ago when I was on WYSL, I had Pastor Ken on, and at the time I was in whack-a-mole mode, right? Where I was always swatting flies and putting out fires,
Sure.
right? And I said, there's a new scam coming out. All my people are calm. There's another scam. Every time there's a new technology. And he reminded me, he said, Mark, there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right. That's a Bible verse. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how much that calmed me down and helped me not be so frantic, right? Because it's, sure, people are taking advantage of each other, and they'll always do so, and all of it is the same thing, right? Even if it's called a new scam or named a new thing or a new method. So that was really grounding for me. The other thing I want to say is that, we'll get into this more, but I want you to tell the audience who you are and so on, what you do.
Sure. Well, I've been bivocational for years. Yes, I'm a pastor. I'm the senior pastor of Spencerport Bible Church. I've been there since 2022. But Rescue and Revive Ministries are my parachurch ministry that was founded in 2018 is how we met. And in fact, I was reminding you that it's been over 7 years since I've been on WYSL. And that was due to you. You overheard a conversation with a friend in a Duncan back in, had to be early 2019.
Yep.
And the rest is history. But so Rescue and Revive Ministries, although we're here in High Falls where our headquarters are, it's a mobile gospel ministry that has local, national, and international branches. Again, that was the conduit, that was the connecting bridge for us. And then that was also Rescue and Revive Ministries was how I was able to get a foot in the door at Spencerport Bible Church, where I've been pastoring, like I said, since 2022, and love both ministries. My background is heavy in missions and evangelism. Of course, we've been to Kenya 5 times, about to go for my 6th time, doing a lot of work there. And but formerly, I was a phys ed teacher. I went to school to be an educator, and through that, started building a CPR first aid training business, which I still do today, like I said, bivocational. But my heart's always been for the good news, for the gospel of Jesus Christ. So that's always been my main focus, my single eye, so to speak. So they work together, they complement each other, and so here we are today.
So, a couple things. When you say international ministry, this is really interesting to me. So, one of my pet peeves is when people throw away technology, right? Yes. I can't say it. Last October, the Microsoft Windows 11 scandal, where they basically said you need to put your computer in the garbage if it doesn't have Windows 11 because you might get viruses. So an estimated 400 million computers were headed to the garbage. Wow. Meanwhile, most urban kids have nothing, and most kids in Africa have nothing, and so on,
they
right?
have nothing. Right.
And so that's insane to me. I'm one of the few guys in the world who can refurb a computer and make it last 15 years, bulletproof it, rip out the Microsoft Circus, and replace it with something stable. So one of my personal passions is taking old machines when clients give them to me. Hey, Mark, I got this old machine in the closet. Great. We rescue their data off of it. Here's your photos. Now we're going to erase it, and I hand it to people like you.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, my client Roger gave me a Google tablet. And it was in the box. He probably used it twice, right? So I erased it with him, handed it to you, and I'll never forget how touching it was when you sent me the photo of a pastor in Kenya who now has something when he didn't have anything.
Yes. That is your computers, tablets, technology has been sent over to Kenya a few times. And I believe the one you're talking about, I remember it well. It's a pastor over there named Bishop Fred F.Y. He actually asked me permission if he could give it as a gift to a pastor in India that he was visiting. I said, sure. So that tablet, I believe it's that, is actually in India now. So I went from Kenya to India. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing how God can use technology. It's a good thing. It's not, there's a misconception in Christendom, perhaps, especially with AI and all the new things coming out. I personally don't think it's not evil. It's how you use the technology, how to use your laptop, your tablet, how to use AI if you use it at all. And so most things fall into that category of how you use it.
And that's a great point. That's another thing that Pastor Ken reminded me of years ago when he was on my show, and I was ranting that all technology is evil. He said, hang on a minute, Mark. Look at what we're doing right now. We're using technology right now to spread some good news and give hope. And so, yeah, I don't mean to talk about the technology to talk about the refurbing of computers, not to toot my own horn, but I want to encourage everyone out there to do this, right? I'm only able to refurb 10 computers a year or whatever. But all of you out there, if you have an old machine, please talk to a guy or whatever who's capable of refurbing it and giving it to some kind of missionary or some kind of inner city ministry or whatever. That's so important. So the other thing I want to say is I only listen to like 2 or 3 podcasts in my life in my car, and yours is one of them. So I definitely want to encourage people to check it out. It's called Rescue and Revive, and it's available on WYSL's podcast page as well as YouTube. And I just love how you deliver the core concepts with clarity so people understand it. And this is... Yeah, I say it all the time. Like the reason why I read articles that are a couple years old on my show is because there are eternal truths behind this stuff. Yes,
I appreciate that. So what we do with the Rescue and Revive Gospel Show is they take the Sunday morning sermons from where I am on Sunday morning, which is primarily Spencerport Bible, although on occasion I'll be at someplace else speaking. So they play that on Sunday mornings, and then the interviews we do, they play on Sunday nights on WYSL. And so I know you've listened to both. The sermons, as far as that nice compliment you gave me, I appreciate it. I thank God for that. It's kind of like this, right? As gifted as you are, which I still am amazed at the aptitude you have for technology, it's kind of the same thing. It's just what God's given me. The ability to teach and preach and make things tangible and bring across points and teaching cues, use different things that not only did I go to school for, but I think God just by His grace has gifted me in. And so it's encouraging to hear feedback like that, so I appreciate it.
That's a good way to put it. Like, remember when Rush Limbaugh used to say he had talent on loan from God?
No, but that's a great line, and I agree with that.
Yeah, it's like I certainly didn't give myself this aptitude, right?
No, it's absolutely right.
I mean, my dad bought me a computer when I was in middle school, and he used to bring old computers home that were 10 years old back then, and he would say, here, learn on this. And I just devoured it.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it still. I mean, I guess it's the same thing as somebody who is a contractor, builder. I mean, I look at people that can build like that. I'm like, I'm amazed, but yet if they got in front of a microphone or even on a podcast like this, they'd freeze up and they just would have no ability. And so you got to be able to empathize and look at other people and say, there's a great Bible verse that says this: a man's gift, man or woman's gift, makes room for them and puts them before great men. And I've always taken that as, you don't have to force the issue. If God's gifted you in an area, He's going to make room for you, use that gift to glorify Him and help people.
That's amazing, because it's still amazing to me where I'll go into an office, right? I'll do tech support for small businesses. And all of a sudden the employees stop and they go get the boss, Mark's here. And the boss drops whatever they're doing to talk to me. And it's amazing, right?
Yeah, it is.
And again, I didn't give myself this talent, right? None of us gave ourselves these talents.
It's God-given.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, like, if you practice basketball or whatever, right? But no, that's really fascinating. So we're going to delve into some articles here.
Sure.
And I usually throw people in front of the articles. And, I have so many, I don't know where to begin. Let's do this one here. I've got two related ones. This is from 2022, and these are pretty related.
Sure.
Autoweek.com. Ford is testing GPS geofencing technology to curb speeding. Ford is conducting a trial of its geofencing, and geofencing means if your car or drone or whatever is within a certain limits on your GPS, you aren't allowed to do something. So it controls you based on your location. And it could be introduced into Ford's vehicles in the future. They're testing it in Cologne, Germany. Cars have known where they are and what the speed limits are for quite a while. So it was perhaps a matter of time before digital road maps assumed the role of actually enforcing speed limit compliance rather than just displaying the speed limit, right? I see modern cars and there's a little thing on the dashboard with a little speed limit sign, right? So they've known this for quite a while, but now they're about to pounce. Ford is currently testing it in Cologne. As GPS technology allows vehicles to track their own movement, it's not rocket science to actually make the vehicle automatically slow down in accordance with those limits. The goal is improving road safety, of course, right? So they dangle that half-truth, if you were, right? The devil speaks in half-truths. So they dangle a half-truth in order to control us. And I've got one more, and then I'm going to ask your opinion of it. How's that? Another related one. The anti-speeding technology is now mandatory in the European Union, and this is Autoweek.com a few months after the other article. New regulations adopted by the European Union have made intelligent speed assistance technology, right, that word game that you always talk about, right, mandatory for all new models. Manufacturers will choose between 4 different warning systems, and it'll be mandatory on all cars sold after 2024, and it's projected to save people's lives. But at what cost? I'll get your opinion, and I have another question about that.
Sure. Well, I think, what's the name of that new company? It's not here. They're actually testing it in our market, the driverless car.
Waymo.
Waymo, yeah. There's certain things in life that I believe require human beings. Driving a vehicle is one of them. All the different automation that they're putting inside some of these vehicles, I think it does go back to the word control. But I actually feel less safe with a car that's going to be managing everything I do. Think of it this way. I know this. I've already made this decision. Should it get to airplanes, I'm not going to fly in an airplane that has no pilots. I mean, it just, again, in the air, on the road, I want a human being. Do you remember when they put they tried the driverless Uber 5 or 6 years ago, and someone got killed?
They don't say that.
No, well, I remember it well because for them, they were somewhat fortunate in the sense of the person was kind of, I don't know if they were homeless or, they didn't have a lot of family, so on and so forth, but nevertheless, a person was killed by this experiment. I am not an advocate or a fan of, it goes back to the conversation we just had 5 minutes ago. Technology can be used for good or evil. I'm not saying it's evil. What I am saying is I don't trust it, and I don't think it's best to have, to overly rely upon technology and everything, but specifically for the use of vehicles and other transportation, which I think you have to stick to humans, regardless of how far we advance. So,
and this is something I say in my forthcoming book that I'm almost done with, is not only is it a control and a limitation, and oh, by the way, you know what? If Silicon Valley wants to, they'll just redirect you. And you know what? You're not allowed to go here anymore. You know what? You want to go to church, you want to go to a competing car dealer, you want to go to whatever. No, you know what? We don't think you should do that. Maybe there's a pandemic and we think your car shouldn't go anywhere, or whatever it may be. the other thing is this. Think about the repercussions here for all those people out there who are Uber drivers, right? Or who are service workers who actually want to work and they need to feed their families, and now they're going to be replaced by a machine and someone else will profit from it?
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Stay home?
Right. Yeah, that's a huge problem, and that's where I think we really have to consider what's being done. It reminds me, just in the beginning in Genesis, of the Tower of Babel, and people always trying to become like God or reach their way unto God, so to speak, with man's work and the mind of man. And although the mind of man is great and complex and has created so much, whenever we get to the point where we try to be like God, major problems ensue.
That's another really good point. In my book, I say, number one, this whole AI thing, it's as if we're back in the Garden of Eden, and we're making that choice again.
Absolutely.
When the devil says, you shall be like gods, right?
That's 100% accurate. Yep.
And it's crazy. And the other thing I say toward the end of the AI chapter is that there's a book called Dune, if you've heard of it. And they say Dune is a story where humanity creates AI and then goes to war against it because AI tries to exterminate humanity. And so the conclusion at the end is the mind of man is holy. In other words, compared to a thinking machine, as they put it.
Yeah, something you can't put in a machine is a soul.
Bingo.
And, you have a soul and a spirit, and man will never be able to replicate that. And that at some point, we're very close right now, will be the only differentiating factor. Man has a brain, they have a spirit, they have a soul, but, AI and all the advanced technology, well, they can replicate a brain to an extent. You cannot replicate a spirit or a soul.
Right, that computer might be able to process information, but it can't experience things.
It can't experience things, no. And that's really the separating factor. Because, like I said, the body can be close to replicated, the mind can be close to replicated, but not the inner man, so to speak.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I do have a little chapter on that about does it have a soul, and I explain why.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, a couple more easy articles here. So many questions I want to ask you. This is great. All right, so you're going to like this one. So, carandriver.com, shocker, in cars, physical buttons are easier than touchscreens. You probably already know this, but it takes longer to perform specific tasks in a new car with menus and screens. If you didn't already know this, a Swedish auto magazine proved it. They took mostly new cars, but also they had a 2005 Volvo, and they pitted them against each other to see how many seconds it took to perform a series of tasks. Right? And they did it while the cars were driving to prove that, hey, look, you have to take your eyes off the road if you have to look at some screen and navigate through nested submenus inside of submenus, right? As opposed to buttons, they might look ugly or whatever on your dashboard, and it takes a lot of mechanical engineering, but guess what? When I had my Chrysler, it was 23 years old, and I'd reach down and turn a knob. I didn't have to take my eyes off the road at all, right? The Volkswagen, for example, the Volkswagen ID4 uses almost entirely digital dashboard, and they have apologized for that since then, by the way. And eliminating or minimizing the physical buttons may look clean, but it's endless menus. And they point out that the BMW iX is one of the most complicated user interfaces ever designed, and by timing the drivers to see how long it took to change settings, they were able to come up with a distance. So it took 0.8 of a mile for the MG Marvel to do a certain task, when it took the 2005 Volvo only 1,000 feet to do it. So that's that concept. I know as a fan of 2005 Volvos, you might have an opinion.
Well, I got a 2016 Volvo.
That's what it is. Yeah, sorry.
There's technology there, but not to the extent it would be 10 years later. I think, it dovetails, connects to kind of the whole interview that we've been having, is that it's an overuse, and it goes back to our use of screens in general and phones. I mean, I have come to a place where if I want to really prepare for a sermon, if I want to really prepare, if I want to have quiet time, prayer time, my best way of doing that really is literally turning off my phone. Because if I don't turn off my phone, even if it's on vibrate and I turn it over, there's a temptation to check it, because we are programmed every day, every moment. And I hate to say it, but I have a large family. My older children, which, so to speak, one is married and one is 20 years old, they spend, I would dare to say, a lot of time in front of their phone because they've been immersed in it in this generation. And so I don't try to control that as much anymore because they're adults. But I see it in those that are in their 20s and 30s, is that they've grown up in this advanced technology age, and it's not going to go backwards. So I think the only thing we can do with the car situation, right, is you look back 2005 to, well, that 20-year gap between 2005 and 2026, what is the difference? The different bells and whistles. And so you're trying to make something more advanced, and while you're making it more advanced, you're also making it more complicated.
Great point, and I say this in the book too, you're reading my mind. In the book I talk about how these things that appear to be clean, right? They even like the Tesla dashboard, it appears to be clean, but underneath there's all sorts of things going on. It's a lot of complication. So here's another one from listener Anthony K. He says, I work in IT, which is the reason our house has mechanical locks, mechanical windows, mechanical old-fashioned routers, no smart home stuff, no Alexa, no Google, no internet-controlled thermostats, right? And I talk a lot about the thermostats where they dangle convenience in front of you as a temptation, but now all of a sudden they're changing your temperature in your house. It's insane. So it's funny because there's a difference between tech enthusiasts and people who know better. Enthusiasts will say, everything in my house is wired to the Internet of Things. I control it all from my phone. My smart house is in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and I give it voice commands. I love the future. But guys like me who know better say, the most recent piece of technology I have is a printer from 2004, and I keep a gun ready to shoot it if it makes a weird noise. I don't actually, but that's the joke.
And that's coming from a guy who's an expert,
right? Because I know what it's doing.
That's where it comes down. That's what it comes down to. Is the word expert? Is that most people are really not aware of what's going on under the hood, so to speak, and you are. So I mean, I don't know how true it is, and my guess is it is true. Is that I had heard about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs when he was alive, so on, that these people didn't let their children either have screens or have much screen time.
Great point.
There's a reason for that.
Because they know better. Even Mark Zuckerberg puts a piece of tape in front of his webcam because he knows the possibility, right? And so, and what I say to people is just like you were saying, when you turn off your phone so you can focus on your sermons, right, on your prep, is you got to turn this stuff off in order to focus. What happens is, it uses, if you're on social media all day, it hijacks your subconscious, right? You're just robotically going through.
That's a good word right there, actually.
That's the real key. And I wish people would know that basic psychological concept, right? They're teaching all sorts of other tangents out there in the world, but we need basic psychological concepts here. So when you turn all that off, it allows you to use your real, they call it your conscious mind or your higher self or your soul, and that's when you can hear God's quiet voice, right?
That's a great point.
And that's when I do the same thing in the morning now. Ever since November, I turn off my phone in the morning. I spend an hour or two focusing on writing my book, because I can't write a book when I have texts and calls.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. That's the challenge of this day and age, and will be the challenge moving forward is quietness, stillness. Everything is so fast, so quick. If there isn't a conscious decision made to turn off all the noise, so to speak, and even in the, I'll find myself in the car. If something simple as a radio, I turn it off. I did it 2 or 3 times today because it's constant noise, constant stimulation, and this is not good for it. It's not good for people. It goes back to the talk. It's not good for people. We are not artificial intelligence. Right? We are made in the image of God. We are God's creation. We are not supposed to be constantly bombarded with stimulation.
That's a great point. Sometimes I will, like this morning, I said, I want to catch up on what's going on in the news, and fine. So I listened to it for a little while. But you're right. After a while, it's just them repeating the same things and so on. But for those of I remember one of my buddies when I was growing up, he didn't have cable TV, and I did. And he was much more creative than me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that again, you had a great line just now. don't let your subconscious be hijacked. Right now, your subconscious can be hijacked with when you have constant stimulation either through the ears, the eyes. For most of the time now, it's the eyes, because you go to a gas station, it's screens. You go to the gym, it's screens. That's all it is. And so again, a conscious, purposeful decision has to be made to turn it all off. And recently, I think it's been about 2 or 3 months now, I turn my phone off on Sundays at 9 a.m. and I don't turn it back on until 1 or 2 p.m. And I love it. It's actually liberating. Mm-hmm. It's very liberating because I know no one can get in touch with me.
And that's awesome, right? Yeah. And like you're surrounded by your family, so it's not like you're totally alone.
Yeah, if there's an emergency, they can get in contact with somebody at the church, whatever. But it's been liberating, and I want to extend that time actually further, maybe from like 9 to 5 on Sundays, which I probably will.
Right. What? In the old days, we had a phone on our kitchen wall. Mm-hmm. Right. Other than that, we weren't reachable 24 hours a day and excitable and so on. And so I'll give you one more article here. This one it's a good news actually. It's from Jitterbug, and they say the Jitterbug Smart 4 32 gig smartphone for seniors. It's $100, right? It's not $1,000 like these iPhones that they're trying to tell you. And it's designed to be easy to use from the moment you turn on instead of increasingly ultra complex, right? Large screen, simple menus, powerful speaker for speakerphone. Staying connected has never been simpler. If you're texting, video chatting, or getting directions, everything is organized in a single list with large legible letters, and they have an urgent response feature, so if you have an emergency, if you have a fall, and so on. And if you notice, that is technology that is senior-oriented as opposed to predatory.
That's good.
Because that's what I see all the time, right?
Yeah, that's real good. That reminds me of Uber has a service they sublet. It's called Go Grandma, and basically they basically take care of the Uber for you, right? So anytime you can get a niche, so to speak, right? And obviously what this telephone company is doing it for the elderly, because again they struggle. I mean, there is that population of, let's say, 70, 80, 90-year-olds, so to speak, right?
And they don't want to get on an app and do passwords.
They don't want to do all that. And here's the thing, Mark, you can get away with that. This is what I tell people. If you're in your 70s, 80s, 90s, you can actually survive getting without technology. Here's why. You don't have that much life left. But guys like you and me, which still have, let's just say, God willing, we still have another lap or two of life, right? I'm 50 years old. I tell people, okay, so if I live to the average, I still have a third of my life left. At 50 years old, I can't live without technology as productively, right? It's not as, wouldn't make a lot of sense for me with a business, ministry, so on and so forth.
However, there are ways to embrace the change in a better way.
There is. And I've often said, I feel like, I'm a man caught between two generations, right? Because I'm a young, old guy. So I can understand the teens, 20s, and 30s. I can also understand the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so, like I said, you can't, what this company's doing, I think, is very wise, because it gives the elderly a good alternative. I'm blown away because I'll have people say this to me, like my in-laws still do, and they're not that old. They're like late 60s and 70s. You're like, okay, well, hey, where is this place? And I'm thinking, just put it in Google Maps, right? Or they'll say things like, oh, we'll follow you. And I'm like, just meet me there. These are things I'm thinking, right? But they don't think as we do in the year 2026, where everything is fast, quick, touch a screen, press a button, give Siri a command.
And in their defense, a lot of the products that are out there are so confusing. I say to myself all the time, and my clients will tell me, they go, Mark, how do you do this stuff, right? Yeah. If I didn't know how to swat all the pop-ups so that I could focus on the map thing, how do people do this? Yeah. So, and I'll say this at the end of my book, I say, look, if you don't have to go Amish, right? I would love to be Amish.
That's what I said,
right? But you don't have to, right? You can find technologies like Mint, where Mint is extremely minimalist and it's calm and peaceful, and it leaves you alone so you can use your computer, right? And it makes your computer, you can revive a 15-year-old computer by putting Mint on it, by the way. Right. So speak to me about, I don't know exactly, but I know it's somewhere in the Bible where God talks about simplicity and how his burden is easy and light instead of frenetic, right?
So, in the Gospels, Jesus says, come unto me, all you that labor and are weary, heavy laden. Take up my yoke. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. And I'll give you rest. And so there's often in the Scriptures, and just sticking even to the New Testament and the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, there's just to kind of give you a way to grasp it, there's an old saying that Christians say, Jesus never hurried and never worried.
Wow.
Yeah, and
in all my years of extreme exhaustion, extreme stress, anxiety, and whatever, I remembered how he was in that boat and there was a storm, but he didn't worry about it.
No worry. He just said, peace be still, right? And so it goes back to, if you are a Christ follower, knowing that God is literally in control of all things. And I was talking on our Easter service in Matthew chapter 28, one of the gospel accounts of the resurrection, where there is in that account, there's an earthquake, there's an angel, and there's a 4,000-pound stone rolled away. And so what does this tell us? Natural disaster, supernatural realm, natural realm, God's in control of all of it. And if you fully trust that, then guess what? You're going to slow down a little bit. You're not going to worry. And you're going to know that, hey, if I want to get to know this God better, I got to slow down and have a little bit of blocking out the noise and have a little bit of quiet time.
Yeah, there were plenty of years before you met me. There were plenty of years when I was 2 months behind with appointments, and I was the only guy in town doing what I was doing, and I thought the weight of the world was on my shoulders, and I had to stop and remember, hey, Mark, you know what? You're not God.
That's right.
And you just do the best you can.
That's it.
And you do the part. And then I was able to partner with guys who were similar to me and who had similar beliefs, and I was able to pass jobs to them. And so that's been a huge relief, is remembering that I'm not God and remembering that, hey, when there's a storm, he doesn't worry.
Yeah, and you're not, we are cut probably from a similar cloth in the sense that entrepreneurial type, visionary, and our minds are kind of always going. There's always vision and ideas coming. And
well, it's because we're Italian.
That plays into it as well. You put all those. You put the culture. You put our background of culture. You put our natural makeup of entrepreneurial type spirit. You put all those things together, and we're more wired to go, quick, so on. And you have to learn, hey, you got to put the brakes on. Patience is a fruit of God's Spirit. So as you grow in the Lord, then hopefully you grow in the area of patience, which, by the way, in this day and age with the whole interview, it is a precious virtue, as some have called it, is patience.
And it will behoove you if you have patience and you have stability, right? When people are sending me articles, Mark, the world's about to end because this technology is coming out, whatever, and I go, hey, you know what? Actually,
well,
we're going to be okay.
People thought, not to take a left turn to politics, but people thought the world may end, 8 p.m. yesterday. They thought, oh, he's going to drop a nuclear bomb. Well, we are quick. We are quick. That's the word, quick to make decisions. And I always say this. Here's a phrase, and you've heard it probably, patience pays. Patience pays. So just slow down, process, take a little space before you just start losing your mind.
Right. You tell your subconscious to hold off a minute. I got
this.
we're
conditioned that.
Right.
Reels.
Yeah.
Reel. I said, recently, Reels will send you reeling.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, media will mess you up. Yeah. It's just the truth.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, if you want to hear Pastor Domenic explain the core concepts of what he does a great job at that. Another thing I love that you do on your podcast is you talk about Christian unity.
Yes.
Right? So what if we're in the Army together?
Right.
All right? Let's just pretend tomorrow we're in the Army together. And you look at me and you go, Mark, you're a Dolphins fan? I'm a Bills fan.
Right.
And then we start fighting each other.
Yeah, that's a great illustration.
Right.
You said military, and I immediately thought of Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. And
yeah, they tease each other. Yeah.
They tease each other, but they're fighting for the same cause. Some fly, some do it on the ground, some do it in the water. That's actually a beautiful illustration. My call from God is more to the universal body of Christ. When I say universal, anybody who has fully trusted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, whether they claim to be whatever denomination it is, that's really my call.
I think it's ridiculous, and I think the devil loves it when all the denominations fight.
Oh, of course, but somebody once told me, when you look at denomination, all you got to do is just flip 2 letters, and it's demon and nation.
Wow.
Yeah, you flip the N and the M, and it's demon and nation. I mean, all denominations have been tainted by a man, and henceforth they are not perfect. The only perfect one is the one in which the church follows, and that's Jesus Christ, who is the head of the church. And so, denominations are permissible, but I don't align myself with just one because of the disunity.
Yeah. We can do a lot more together, and we can learn so much from each other. Yeah. I listen to you. I listen to priests. I listen to everyone.
You can learn from anybody. I remember this at a leadership conference. I never forgot this. Said you should be able to learn from anybody. I believe that. mean, this might sound bizarre from a pastor, but you can learn from, take this in the right context, because I don't seek out doing this, but you can learn from a Satanist. Now, you say, well, what can you learn from Satanists? You can learn what's evil.
Yeah.
You can learn about evil, okay? So it's an ability to say, and to be humble enough to say, every person, good or evil, they're made in the image of God, so I can learn something from them. Even if it is radically evil, I can learn, though, which can help me help others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So look up his podcast, rescueandrevive.org.
Yep.
That's where you can get that, right?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you so much for being here. This
Absolutely.
is a long time coming.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it flowed really well, and I think it's there were a few things you said, too, that just are going to stick with me, so I appreciate that.
All right, we'll talk to you next week. TheComputerExorcist.com. Tell your friends about the show.